Okay, so I finished the magnetising of the hull and the dozer blade, and then I've assembled a few parts like the main hull and the tracks, as you see here. There's the flamer section, just magnetised, and then I've got the dozer blade magnetised. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've got that bit. The next section is what does the top half of the Storm Chimera looks like? And this is where it gets a bit ambiguous because there's no actual official images of what Storm Chimera looks like, and you just have to go off of what's in the rules. So in the rules, it's got an auto cannon instead of a multi-laser. That's the most obvious bit. And then it's got extra armour, like side armour it's meant to have, and it's meant to have track guards. But also it's got the funny thing where it doesn't have the laser array rules for the Chimera, because that was 7th edition, and this the rules for the Storm Chimera came out in 6th edition. But it never had the 5 or 6 men shooting from the top hatch that the original Chimera had. Instead, just 2 men can fire out the top turret hatch. So I'll show you what, in my mind, is kind of what Storm Chimera looks like. Now, here's a Forge World kit. It's basically one big scenic block of resin. I picked this one off of eBay, but I saw it originally as part of one of the sort of massive boards at Warhammer World in Nottingham. And what I really loved about this kit is you've got these sort of, you don't have the lasguns on there, they're just like these sealed holes. And that just to me looks really good. And then the top hatch has obviously been converted into like a little bunker position, but that kind of makes sense for this because it's like a crashed, you know, destroyed Chimera. That seems to be more in keeping. And then obviously you can see the track guards here as well, which I actually have some of. They're Forge World models, they're out of production, but there's also extra detailing like these ammo boxes and a fuel canister. That all looks really good. So I kind of want to, you know, use this as inspiration as much as possible. And I just love these like sealed bits where there's no lasguns in them at all, because lasguns always, I find, look a bit fiddly and a bit rubbish, in my opinion anyway. So I'll show you my version and I'll show you what I've done. So here's my version of the Storm Chimera top section. So the autocannon is the Forge World resin model that you can get. And then I've done sealed holes for where the lasgun's meant to go, which you can see I've filled in with green stuff, and I'll talk about that a bit more in detail in a few minutes. And then this lovely top section that I really like. And it was just a coincidence I had it, because originally I bought some searchlight models. So the idea is that a giant searchlight fits in on here, and it's just too big and it's a bit overbearing and wasn't needed. But actually it makes a really good unit, and I've got what I'm going to add in is this little vent unit here, which I've just pulled off from another model just to show you how it's going to look when it's finished. And it fits in quite perfectly. It's obviously meant to be raised, it's not meant to be raised up, and it's meant to be sunk down slightly, but do you know what, I think that'll make it look really good, and it will really fit into the Death Corps of Krieg army that I've got, because all my tanks have that vent unit on it in one way or another, and I converted all my tanks to make sure they do. So it took a fair bit of sanding down to get this to fit in. I assume that's where it's meant to go, but it might be it's just like an older version for other Chimeras that fitted better. Probably because it didn't have that secondary plastic line of rivets going around it or something. So it took me a long time to file that down and fit it in nice and tight. I can actually show you a bit better on this version because I'm doing 2 at the moment. So fits in nicely. And then so what I did for these are, as you can see, the lasguns just turned upside down. And then this section's got loads of mould lines on it, so you just need to really carefully file that all down really smooth before you stick it in, obviously. And then I'd also done the green stuffed this little section here, because there's a little cutout for where the lasgun's meant to go. Green stuffed that, filed it down, added a bit of liquid green stuff just where there are a few little gaps, and then smoothed that off a second time. And then I glued in the lasguns upside down. originally I was like, oh, I might magnetize it all, so if the rules do change and the laser array does become available for the Storm Chimera, then I need these Lasguns again. And I was like, oh, I don't want this wobbling around, messing around, so I'll just glue them in. And then there's a bit of gaps, there's liquid green stuff in there just to fill in the gaps, so it's, you know, it's sealed tight. And then if it does change where the rules do update and the laser array is back for this version of the Chimera, then I'll sort of worry about that then, and I've got some spare Lasguns that I could just probably glue straight onto this. So it's not too problematic. So there we have it, that is the top hull. Oh, one last thing. So as you can see, there's these slight rivets that I added on just on the bottom here. I actually managed to steal these from the bottom half of here, just because, you know, no one's going to see that when the top bit goes on, so I just pinged them all off with a knife, super glued them back on, and sort of, there we go. Next section is the tracks, and I'll do that in a separate video, so keep watching guys. Cheers.